Alright, so today we're going to be looking at our feet placement. The feet are so important to your foundational strength. And I know we went through it a little bit before, but now we're going to look at actually how to set up our feet for optimal support during any exercise. So let's go back down so you can have a look at my feet. And what we want to work on is getting a good arch support, because we don't want this to happen. So this is when you pronate your feet. So one foot might pronate or both might pronate. And watch what happens to my knees when my foot pronates. Okay? They start going in, we start getting knee pain, our hip starts internally rotating. Even working it outwards is also not great, because that's also impacting your hip. Remember right back when we were talking about great glutes and we were talking about how the femur sits into your hip bone? So it can come from your feet or it can come from the top. We're going to be concentrating today on the feet. So the first thing we need to do in getting this great support system is to spread our toes. So if they're not spread, go down and manually spread them out. Get those big toes nicely out and your little toes out, so we've got this great base of support down there. Now, if this is hard to do, which it might be, you could try and get some of those toe spacers that you can buy, like for putting your nail polish on and things like that. Try putting some of those in between your toes. And when you're sitting down relaxing in the evening, if you ever get a chance to sit down and relax, because that might help just get that spread happening. Alright, so we're going to think about spreading our toes, and now we're going to think about our weight distribution. So what we want is we want our weight to be over this sort of arch in our foot here. So we don't want it all over our balls of our feet like this. And we don't want them all over our heels like this either, okay? So we're going to try, and we're going to go halfway in between. So let's start by going forward over our toes, back over our heels, and let's balance it off halfway in between. Excellent. Now you should find that when doing this, it's much easier to get that hip bone in line with your ankle bone, so we've got this nice straight leg rather than this forward posture with our hips slung forward. Because if you're slinging your hips forward, your weight's likely over your toes. So let's bring it back and get our hips and everything in line. Now if you go too far back, you're going to end up with your weight over your heels, okay? So then you're sticking your bum out. So halfway in between, get that perfect placement. Excellent. And now we're going to really work on our arch. So to work on our arch, we're going to concentrate on the ball of the foot just below our, just below our toe. So right here, we want to push that into the ground. So here's my big toe, then ball of the foot just by my big toe, and just slightly onto the outside of the heel. Not right on the outside, but not quite in the middle either, just slightly towards the outside. And if we work by pushing that point and this point to the ground, what it's going to do is it's really going to work our arch. And that's what we want. We want a nice, strong arch to support ourselves. Okay, so we're going to work on that. So let's get our feet out, make sure our toes are nicely spread. We're going to make sure our weight is evenly distributed so that we're over our arch. Then we're going to push the weight at our big toes down and slightly on the outside of our heels. Excellent. I'm hoping this doesn't feel too weird for you. Now what you might find when you do this is that you don't feel the need to clench your glutes as much as you might have. Because with a great base of support, you don't need to clench your glutes to get that stabilization happening. So by setting your feet up correctly before doing any exercise or when you're standing, you're actually going to help your hips as well as your knees and your ankles. So this is fantastic, getting that support from the bottom up these times. Now, the one thing I want to warn you about is try not to let this part of your ankle tighten to do this process, okay? So make sure that's still nice and loose, that's not firing, and keeping our toes all on the ground, so don't let any of them come up. So don't let those ones come up if you're just trying to squish that bottom big toe down. So make sure all the toes are on the ground, not clenched. Nicely weight between the ball of the foot and the heel, and our arches being supported. And this should stop this from happening, so that pronation shouldn't need to do that, and it should also stop that supination going onto the outside of our feet. All right, so now we're going to work on some exercises to help strengthen that arch even more so that this becomes more natural to you. All right, I'll see you in the next video.